The Super Nintendo is one of the most beloved consoles ever made, but outside of ROM hacks, it hasn't gotten as much love from the indie game dev community as the NES, the Mega Drive, or the Game Boy. But that doesn't mean that it hasn't received some bangers. So today, we'll be taking a look at modern releases for the Super Nintendo, and the only rule is that the games need to be fully completed and playable from start to finish. So let's get started! This is Dottie Flowers, a platformer run-and-gun hybrid in which you play as a witch girl trying to stop an alien invasion. You begin in a Super Mario World-like overworld, but as far as I can tell, there are no secret levels or alternate paths to take. It's just a straight line. And once you start playing, I gotta say, the graphics look fantastic. The color choices are so well made that at times, this could pass for an early 2D game for the PS1 or Sega Saturn. Anyway, as Dottie, you have a broom that lets you fire bullets, hover in the air for a few seconds, and perform melee attacks when you're near an enemy. As you progress through the game, you'll also meet fairies which give you new abilities like this charge-up saw attack that can damage enemies or block attacks. Not only that, but levels will usually have minor alternate paths or secrets where you can find optional upgrades for your abilities. Levels also have gems, and if you collect every gem in the stage and get a minimum combo, you get a gold coin at the end, and you'll need to collect every gold coin to get the good ending. Speaking of which, this game's greatest issues are its length and difficulty. Basically, the game is super short with only 6 or so stages. And not only that, but the game is really easy. Excessively easy, in fact. I should point out though that games that are too short and easy will be a bit of a common theme in this video. You can get through most levels and bosses just fine. And in fact, most bosses have really basic attack patterns, so you'll most likely beat them on your first try. It's not until the final stage where I actually faced off against the boss that took several attempts for me to beat. Though I will say, this was also my favorite portion of the game. I mean, sure, I was getting my ass kicked, but it was the good kind of difficulty. In fact, I'd say that most of the game's challenges comes from collecting all the gems and getting your combo high enough to collect the gold coin. But even that wasn't that hard. It also doesn't help that every level uses the same background song, so by the end I was a little tired of it. Throughout the game, you'll also meet Earth's Freedom Forces, and they're basically the game's comedy relief. The joke being that you're the one who saves the day, but they keep getting all the credit. The humor's okay, not quite as funny as it should have been, and it's not helped by the fact that you can't skip these dialogue scenes. And they get pretty old once you start revisiting old stages to collect gold coins. And I also like how the game is filled with Turrican references, like this boss, which was clearly taken from the Turrican series, or the Freedom Forces armor, who is a reference to the playable character from Turrican, and the main villain, who is basically an exact copy of the villain from the Turrican series. Overall, I really enjoyed this game, but I can't help but feel that it's too short and easy for its own good. If this had been longer and the difficulty better balanced, it could have been an all-time best. As it is though, it's still a solid A-. Dottie Flowers was followed by Dottie Dreadnought, and this one's a bit of a genre change. The game ditches the run-and-gun portion for a full-on action platformer, with all of your attacks being melee and the like. The graphics are also just as good as the first game, and the Mario-style world map is gone in favor of a more traditional level progression. So the idea is that as you hit enemies, you charge up your two main abilities: a drill that perforates walls and enemies, and a mirror that highlights hidden items, which you can then collect by controlling your owl. The owl will also automatically collect any items dropped by enemies. I quite like the drill mechanic, and the level design really makes full use of of it, but the owl honestly feels underutilized. Every item you have to collect is hidden within close distance when you activate the power, and you can't scroll away from your witch, so you basically end up controlling the owl for like 5 seconds and then return to the witch. It kinda feels like this was either an afterthought or that the developer didn't quite know how to create an interesting level design around this ability. At least this game now uses different background songs for different areas, though they're not all winners. And the game also suffers from being even shorter and easier than Dottie Flowers. In the end, this game's good, but I can't help but feel like it should have had more development time. I like it for what it is, but Dottie Flowers was better. B tier. This is Unholy Knight the Darkness Hunter, a fighting game created by former SNK staff. At least that's what the official press release said back in the day, but after playing this, I think they must have been degenerate or something, because this is one of the worst fighting games I've ever played. And need I remind you, I've played a lot of bootlegs. So you have 6 characters to choose from, which is already a pretty small roster to start with. And then you move on to some of the least impressive looking stages out there. I mean, the colors are good, but there's zero animation and the backgrounds look like they were scanned in instead of being drawn with the SNES limitations in mind. Not only that, but even the backgrounds get reused for different characters, and there's only 2 stage songs, none of which is particularly good. But okay, maybe it's just a little light on content variety, but what truly matters is the gameplay, right? Yeah, except that's even worse. The controls are super janky and the gameplay is so choppy. Like, why does it run like that? It's so bad that the game would often miss my inputs, so pulling off combos or special moves was super inconsistent. There's also no pushback between ground moves, so you can just keep wailing at your enemies and there's no damage scaling, meaning that you can actually pull off 100% damage combos, assuming you actually want to take the time to learn this game, which you shouldn't. And although I'm playing this alone, I've heard that if you play with a friend, the second player controls are buggy and some inputs won't even work at all. Man, Nintendo fans deserved better than this. If you want a good modern 16-bit fighting game, my recommendation would be Kunio no Neketsu School Fighters for the Mega Drive. But this? Nah fam, this is trash. F tier. This is Nekotaco, also known as Taco, Princess from the Moon. You're a thing, and you were out fishing when cats in a flying saucer steal all your fish, so now it's your job to get it back. So you begin in a Super Mario World style map, though once again, near as I can tell, there are no secret stages or alternate paths to unlock or anything. You just go from point A to point B. And this game is basically a single screen arcade platformer. Well, I mean, the screen does scroll, but you get what I mean. And your job is to tackle all the cats, collect the fish, and then drop the fish in your flying saucer. Now, you can just collect each fish one by one, but you have a fairly tight time limit, so it's usually better to bring multiple fish, or better yet, every fish in a stage all at once to the saucer. Not only that, but levels also have coins to collect, and the more fish you bring in a single trip to your saucer, the more coins you get at the end of the stage. Additionally, if you have every fish with you on hand, the stage will reveal even more extra coins for you to collect. The problem is that if a cat is fishless, it becomes aggressive, and if it bumps against you, you lose all the fish and they either start jumping around the stage or are recollected by the cats themselves, meaning that you gotta go collect the fish all over again. again, because as we all know, 16-bit Italian princesses are morally opposed to pussies smelling like fish. And coins are useful too, because once you're in the world map, you can go to a store and buy items like a magnet that attracts fish, or a stopwatch that paralyzes every cat for a few seconds. The cats themselves are harmless, other than taking your fish from you, as they can't actually damage your character. But a lot of the levels have stage hazards which kill you in one hit. And that's a bit of a problem, because sometimes the fish will land right on top of one, and you gotta wait for a cat to pick it up, and then wait for the cat to get to a less dangerous spot, and then finally tackle the cat again. But with that said, there was at least one occasion where the cat simply did not go where the fish landed, which, yeah, that kinda sucks actually. I did cheese my way through it by getting hit on purpose and then using the invincibility time frame to collect it. But I got the feeling that this wasn't what the developers had in mind. Now, if you do lose a life, you also lose the item you just bought, so do watch out for that. Another issue I have with this game is that, once again, this game is a bit short and a bit easy. And that's a shame too, because this feels like it could have been a full release back in the day. But as it is, it's a little light on content. But still, I quite like this one. B+. This is Supercooked, a party game where you play as a chick who needs to cook dishes, and this is a 3D make of the indie game Overcooked. So the game begins with yet another Mario World style map that, as far as I know, once again has no alternate paths or levels. Once inside a level, you have a few minutes to prepare your dishes as the orders come. So you'll have to chop up vegetables for salads, pasta and tomato sauce, put stuff in the oven, that sort of thing. And if you leave them on for too long, they'll overcook and spoil. After that, you gotta put everything on a plate and bring it to the conveyor belt. And while you're doing all of that, you gotta face off against stage challenges like mice who steal your ingredients, people who walk right past your street food stall, washing your plates so they can be reused again, and so much more. And yeah, to say that this game is chaotic is an understatement, especially when you also gotta manage your counter slots. Luckily, you do have a dash move which saves you quite a bit of time. But make no mistake, this game gets super chaotic super fast, as everything piles on really quickly. Once a level is finished, you're scored on how well you did, and if you beat a level, you get a star which can then be used to unlock more parts of the world map. Now, this is supposed to be a party game, allowing up to 4 players. The problem is, as you can tell, I'm playing alone. And I've been told that once you get 4 people in, this game becomes super fun. But, well, I have no way of properly gauging that. So the best I can say is that on its own, this game is a B-. But please bear in mind that this isn't a fair score to the game. If you've actually played this with friends, let me know what it's like. But until then, consider this game with a score of at least B-.
Xenocrisis.
This is Xenocrisis, and this is a really interesting one. And that's because this is actually a modern Sega Genesis or Mega Drive game that was now brought over to the Super Nintendo. So, is this a good port? Absolutely! For starters, it manages to retain the Sega soundtrack in its entirety. What I mean is, they did not adapt the soundtrack to the SNES sound chip, but rather it seems to be playing the actual Mega Drive music. I'm not quite sure how they achieved this, but near as I can tell, the cartridge has a custom chip that is used to play back the Sega soundtrack. Now granted, it does play at a lower sample rate, but there's a good chance that most won't even notice. Not only that, but it also adds new voice lines that weren't in the original. And you also have some new minor graphical effects like fog and transparent explosions. I like the fog effect, but not gonna lie, not a big fan of what they did with the explosions. So, what's the game like? Basically, aliens have invaded a military compound and it's up to you to stop them. You can choose between two characters, both of which have different starting stats as well as max stats. And as you defeat enemies, they'll drop new weapons which have limited ammo, as well as grenades and dog tags which can then be traded for upgrades to your character. Upgrades include stuff like more hit points, more ammo for your main gun, making your main gun stronger, stronger grenades, that sort of thing. And this game is brutally difficult. Enemies can come from literally anywhere, and they often spawn almost on top of you, so you have to watch out. Thankfully, you have a roll maneuver which makes you invulnerable while you're rolling, and you should use this very often. But the real issue here are the bosses. Not only are they very difficult, but they're also absolute damage sponges. In fact, I actually think the level 1 boss is more difficult than the level 2 boss, simply because you haven't had the chance to buy any upgrades yet, so you cannot tailor your character to your playstyle yet. But with that said, this Super Nintendo version has one major advantage over the Sega original, and that is the controller. My biggest issue with the original game was quite simply how the Mega Drive controller just wasn't built for this sort of game. It did not matter if you were using the 3-button or 6-button controller. There was a huge learning curve with the controls due to the button placement. But the Super Nintendo controller is just so better suited for this. It's easier to tell which button shoots up, down, left or right based on the button location within the actual controller, and as a result, I made a lot fewer mistakes in this version. Other than that, yeah, this is pretty much the same game. I still have some issues with the extreme difficulty of Xenocrisis, but I have mostly come around to it, and I generally prefer difficult games over easier ones. But yeah, as of right now, this is most likely the best modern Super Nintendo game out there, and it deserves an S tier. Now, before we continue, I'm just going to take a few minutes to quickly mention a few games that are still in development and I honestly cannot wait to play. We have Tail and Hat by Wooddev, whose style and soundtrack reminds me of Mega Man 7 and it looks incredible. Nova Squirrel is making a Mode 7 platformer, which as far as I know, is something that was never actually attempted back in the day, and I'm very curious to see how it pans out. And finally, we have Rex Nobilis by Coolor Research Labs, a bullet hell shmup on the Super Nintendo. It's not often you see an SNES game trying to flex its sprite limit, so I'm very interested in finally getting to play this. Hopefully, all three of these projects will come to fruition. Anyway, back to the video. Sydney Hunter and the Caverns of Death is an Indiana Jones-inspired 2D platformer. The game is a sequel to Sydney Hunter and the Sacred Tribe, which was a modern game for the Intellivision. And though I've never played the Sacred Tribe, Caverns of Death does seem to be a more complex game than its predecessor. But honestly, this game feels a little out of place on the Super Nintendo. If this were an NES or Master System game, then it'd be fine, which, by the way, this game actually did get a Master System port. But on the Super Nintendo, it just feels kinda basic. But okay, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. You play as Sydney Hunter, an explorer who became trapped in a volcano. So now, you have to play through 10 levels where you jump, climb, and rappel your way through the stages, taking out enemies with your boomerang and picking up treasures for points and pineapples for extra lives. Sometimes you'll run into altars, and you need to place items on it, so you'll have to explore the level, find the item, and bring them to their respective altars. And levels can have multiple altars, but you can only carry one item with you at a time. Thankfully, altars will have a drawing of whatever item you need. So you'll have to place stuff like diamonds, crystal skulls, and golden butt plugs. However, sometimes when you pick one of these items, the gods become angry and lava begins to rise throughout the entire map, effectively giving you a time limit to complete the rest of the stage. And that's pretty much it, really. Some stages or areas are darker than others, and those can lead to some pretty cheap deaths. And occasionally, you have these set pieces where you need to climb vines while the lava rises towards you. But overall, this is a pretty simple game. The graphics and audio are kind of below average for the system, and as a game, this feels like it should have been on the Commodore 64 or something. I'm not trying to be harsh on it, but whenever I play this, it just reminds me a lot of Montezuma's Revenge, except that game was a bit more impressive as it was arguably the first Metroid-style game ever made. But Sydney Hunter is... I don't know, it's fine. It's kind of weird how Dottie Flowers is a free game, and yet it feels so much more like an actual Super Nintendo game. Whereas Sydney Hunter, which is actually a paid product, simply feels like it's on the wrong system. See there? This is Nightmare Busters, a run and gun where you play as a leprechaun. The game was originally meant to launch for the Super Nintendo in 1994 or 1995, but for whatever reason, that ended up not happening. But in 2013, it was finally launched by Super Fighting Team, and man, playing this game after playing every other title in this video really does show how game design philosophies changed over the last 30 years. This game is unapologetic in how difficult it is. You have to always be on the move and always be firing. It really is a game that will send you to the game over screen on the first level on your first attempts, and deaths can range from fair to super cheap, as not only are you given very little time to react, but then there's stuff like these barrels, which I assumed were safe, but turns out they weren't. But despite that, I actually really enjoyed this game. The more I played, the better I got at it, and I was really in the zone after a while. The graphics are absolutely fantastic, with highly detailed characters, good animation, and decent backgrounds. And you'll also be picking up weapon upgrades to your dinky little playing cards. So you pick up stuff like fire cards, a double shot, powered up shots, that sort of thing. And you also have multiple types of screen clearing bombs, which you can cycle through with the shoulder buttons. And finally, you have a dash maneuver which can only be used a few times and needs to charge up, but can also cause a ton of damage. I also really like all these set pieces, like the one where you fall into a volcano, play through the level, and then pop back out the other end. The music is pretty forgettable, and a lot of these sections can be infuriatingly cheap, but Nightmare Busters is a pretty fun time. B+. This is New Super Mario Land, a remake of Mario Land using the aesthetics of the new Super Mario Bros. Games. And right out of the bat, this game is super impressive. Graphically, it goes well beyond what we tend to associate with the Super Nintendo. I know that it's basically doing the same thing as the Donkey Kong Country games, but it's still really impressive what was achieved here. I especially like the water effects, which are some of the best I've ever seen on the system. The music though, I'm a little less impressed. Don't get me wrong, it isn't bad, and maybe it's just my nostalgia talking, but I think I like the Game Boy renditions better, though these are fine too. And the game is a loving recreation of Super Mario Land, though there are a few minor changes here and there. One of them is that Mario can now grab onto walls as he falls down, giving you time to perform a wall jump. It doesn't come into play that often, but it did save my life once. And during the shmup segments, bullets can now collect coins as well, which does reduce the challenge a little bit, though I did still find these shmup levels a bit more difficult than their Game Boy original counterparts. And I I think that's because everything is just so big in this version, so it's more difficult to dodge them. I know Super Mario Land doesn't have the best rap, but I do like that game. But this Super Nintendo remake slightly changes the physics and speed of the game. Basically, this version runs a little slower, which can either be a good or bad thing depending on your preference. Other than that, yeah, this is a prettier version of Mario Land, right down to how the Fire Flower works. It's a good game that feels like it could have been an official Nintendo remake from back in the day. But I will say, I like the speed and flow of the original game a little better. But still, this is a fun one. B+. And there we have it, a look at the major modern Super Nintendo releases. While not every game is a winner, I think that we can safely say that we still got some really high quality releases, and we can only hope that there's even more to come. Are there any games I missed out? Let me know in the comments. And in the meantime, you can check out my Patreon or become a YouTube member to watch uncensored versions of my video. And it may not look like it, but even $1 is a really big help for the channel. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. Bye!